And my first thoughts are, what an idiot. What an idiot. Now, I said... What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Real. So, I've just finished watching Joker, the movie. It's come out in the UK today. Just watched it. And my first thoughts are, what an idiot. What an idiot. Now, I say that because my trailer review was mixed, let's just say. It was quite mixed. I don't know what to think about that. I really don't. It's mixed. It's really mixed. I think one of the first things I said was I had mixed feelings after watching it. There were some things I liked in it and some things I wasn't quite sure about. They were put to bed early. They were put to bed early after watching this film. Okay, so is this a spoiler-free or a spoiler review? It's a bit of both. So I'm going to start off with the spoiler-free. So the spoiler-free is watch the film. The film is amazing. Watch the film. The spoiler-free edition ends now. So, now we're going into spoiler territory. Where do I start? I don't know where to start with film. Okay, this is the first thing I'm going to say. You know a film's good, or personally for me, I know when a film has done its job. When you leave the cinema, the film leaves with you. You don't walk out the cinema and then you're moving on with whatever else you need to do in the day. A good film is the one where you leave the cinema and you're still thinking about it. You get in the car, you're still thinking about it. You get home and it's still popping up in your mind. And that is what the Joker did. This film is the film of the year. That's it. This is by far the film of the year. And for me, this is the first masterpiece from DC since Man of Steel. You have the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, masterpiece. Man of Steel, perfect. But since then, for me, every other film has been to some extent a disappointment. Okay, the acting. So when I watched the trailer, I was quite confident that Joaquin Phoenix would be able to deliver a performance as Arthur Fleck. He's a very good actor. I love his roles in Walk the Line, Gladiators. What sort of a film called now? I forgot the other film. But anyway, he's a great actor. So when I saw him in the trailers, I thought, yeah, in my opinion, he's nailed that kind of Arthur Fleck pre-Joker role. I liked his look, and I was quite confident he could deliver. But I wasn't quite sure if he could deliver as the Joker. The Joker's such a well-known, interesting, and difficult character to pull off. I wasn't quite sure if he could do it. Now, I talked a little bit about that in my trailer review, where I loved Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne, but he wasn't the best Dark Knight for me. That transition over to the Dark Knight wasn't quite the same. And then you had Ben Affleck, who was the opposite. I thought Ben Affleck was a great Batman, but a Bruce Wayne, not quite the same. So my concerns were similar for this one, for the Joker. But yeah, they were put to bed early. His ability to move from Arthur Fleck, how it showed why he became the Joker, what caused him to think the way he thought and act the way he did, and what were the pieces that set off this firework, in essence. Joaquin Phoenix, the role he played, that's the number one for me. That is the number one. I'll get onto the rest in a minute, but for something to be special, for a film to be a masterpiece, the main character needs to deliver. It has to deliver. I've mentioned this in the trailer for Uncut Gems, starring Adam Sandler. If he delivers in that role, then it will be a success, because it heavily relies, by the looks of the trailer, on him as a character. And Joker is all about Joker. If he can pull off that role, everything else will fall into place. And it does. It does. How he was able to show how he was behind socially, he was behind mentally, he was behind physically. He wasn't even eating. How he showed all these aspects of his life. How he came from a broken home. He didn't know who his dad was. Dad was. He didn't know who his dad was. His mother was ill. All these things built up the foundations to establish who he was as a man and what pushed him to the edge. So that for me is a more significant factor to the success of this film. Joaquin Phoenix's performance as not only Arthur Fleck, but as also Joker. The transition was perfect. Now I also really like that it's, in essence, it's an origin. I really like that. I really like how it shows the man behind Joker, who he was before, what made him up, and what tipped him over the edge. So in essence, this was an origin, and this is something we've not actually got before from the Joker. Now I understand that part of what makes the Joker unique is that he's come on the scene, no one knows his background, his story, or anything about him. He's kind of elusive, so you run the risk of doing an origin and ruining that. Kind of like what happened with Solo. Han Solo has a very similar mysterious backstory that adds to his character, and if you get it wrong, which they kind of did in Solo, it kind of affects the whole character. So you ran the risk of doing that in this one, and Joker's such an epic villain, but they didn't ruin it. They got it perfect. I really love the origin. I really love how they showed him. He was this middle-aged man going through this kind of middle-aged crisis. He has everything going against him. He has mental issues. He has these mental issues, and people aren't accepting or helping him. And then you find out there's a few things that kind of tip him over the edge and make him into the man that we know him to be now. So the first thing for me that tipped him over the edge was where he killed. There's a scene basically where he's getting beaten up on the underground. Now, there's a couple of scenes prior to that, he got beaten up by a bunch of kids, and one of his work colleagues had given him a gun. He said, "Take this gun, you need to look after yourself." So he's got this gun, he's getting beaten up on the train, and he kills them all. He kills all three of them, and then he runs off. That was the first time he actually ever stood up for himself, and it changed him. That was a defining point in making him who he was. And then from that, the next big thing for me that turned him over the edge was finding out about his mother. So his mother is a person that he cares for, he loves, he thinks she loves him. And he finds out that not only is she not his mother, but when he was younger, she allowed her abusive partner not only to beat her, but to beat him. So she was a terrible mother, in essence. She was also delusional. She believed that Thomas Wayne, who's Bruce Wayne's dad, so we see a little bit of Batman in this as well, which is cool. She believed that he was the father to Arthur Fleck. And it turns out that she was delusional. She came from Arkham Asylum. She was mental, and it was all lies. And he wasn't. He was abandoned, and he was adopted. So finding out that the only piece of his world, the only foundation to his world, was a lie. Plus the fact that then he'd stuck up for himself and he'd killed kind of people, and because of this, there was this kind of craze about a vigilante or a murdering clown that was spotted. Because of all these things that were building up, he lost the foundation or anchor to his mother, and then he got kind of like this attention from the media because he was a murderer. At the time, they didn't know who it was, but there was a scene in it where he said that for all his life he's been irrelevant, for all his life he's been invisible. And doing the things he's doing now is the first time where people are actually taking notice. People are giving him attention, and because people are taking notice, he feels alive. He feels alive. Up to that point, he questioned his own reality. He wasn't even sure if he even existed. So they were the 2 points for me that changed him over from Arthur Fleck to the Joker. And I really love how they didn't rush it. I really love how they showed his problems, his struggles, and built it all the way up to these key points. And I was so wrong. When I'm watching, I'm thinking, his mother's clearly ill. She's probably got some kind of disease and she'll eventually pass away. And because of that, he won't have anyone else to pull him back in and keep him level. So he will go off and be the Joker. Oh, how I was wrong. It wasn't his mother's death that tipped him over the edge. It was his mother's life that tipped him over the edge. It was her lies and her lack of parenthood. The realisation that who his mother was, it wasn't his mother. The realisation that he had this terrible upbringing and that he was abused as a child. And the realisation that he had nobody, no one that really cared or loved for him, that is what tipped him over the edge. So I was so wrong. It wasn't his mother's death, but it was his mother's actions when she was alive that made him into the man that we now know as Joker. one of the best scenes in terms of music and how it was ideal for the scene was where he kills he kills these guys from Wall Street. This is one of the defining points. He kills them. He realizes what he does. He runs away as fast as he can. He runs into a toilet, slams the door, and after 5, 10, 15 seconds of realizing what he's doing and he's panicking, after that he calms down and he starts this dance. He starts to do this dance, which is almost kind of like, I feel, it's his kind of calming mechanism, just to calm him down. He does this kind of, it's almost like Tai Chi, kind of does this kind of like this Tai Chi, like relaxing dance. And it goes on for about 2 minutes. And as I'm watching it and the music's playing, I'm thinking, the feelings I'm getting are like, it's not, oh, this scene is for the audience. It doesn't feel like the scene's for the audience. Okay, the audience is watching it, want to show the audience that he's trying to calm himself down, he's dancing in front of the mirror in a kind of like a weird way. And then boom, cut to the next scene, we get the point. When I'm watching it, it feels like the scene isn't for the audience, it's for him. You're watching, it's like you're looking into his world, you're watching him, because the scene goes on and on and on and on until he's ready and he's calmed down and he recognises himself in the mirror. And that scene for me with the score was really, it was really impactful, let's put it that way. And like I said, it felt like you were watching him. It didn't feel like it was necessarily purely focused for the audience's I don't mean entertainment, but the audience's, it felt like the audience was secondary. It felt like you were looking into his life, and that for me just added to his character. There was another scene where he's building up all this momentum, he wants to be a comedian, and he gets a spot, he goes to this comedy show, and he can't speak. He's so nervous, he can't speak, and then he starts laughing. He's got this complex where basically certain conditions affect him in certain ways, and once they get triggered, he laughs. Even though he's not happy, he's laughing. And it's some kind of condition that he has, and when he has it, he gives the card to the people so they can read it and realise that he's not quite well. And he's doing his comedy sketch. He can't speak. He only gets a few words out and then he starts to laugh. And you get the point after 20 seconds. But it goes on 30, 40, 50, it goes on for a minute longer, and all it does is it just builds up. It builds up more than tension. It builds up like embarrassment. It makes you feel like you're there. It makes you feel like you're sitting there, and that's a sign of a great film. You are transported to that place. You're in that scene. You're watching him struggle, and you feel it as well. And the way they've done it is they've made sure that they squeeze every little bit of awkwardness and pain out of it so you can feel what he feels. And that for me is what makes this film so special. You are able to tie in and engage fully with all his emotions, from his happiness to his regret to his sadness to his pain, and they make sure that them moments are fully explored. Let's just call it that, fully explored, and they give the audience enough time to fully feel what he feels. And that is why I'm saying that this is a masterpiece. This is one of the best DC films. In fact, this is one of the best. This is one of the best superhero. You could call it superhero, DC, Marvel, that kind of range of films. But off the back of that, it doesn't feel like one. It doesn't feel like one. We've got tie-ins to certain aspects that we know are superhero based, but it doesn't feel like one. It's realistic. You can imagine this happening so many times in towns and cities all over the world. It's as real as it gets. It's as real as it gets for me. And that's one of the things that strikes me as well, that it feels just like a film. I wouldn't even class it as a superhero DC universe or attached to that film. It just feels like a look into a man's life who is being pushed to the edge, who has a mental illness, who has no one out there for him. And this is what happens if you put him in certain circumstances. Eventually, he's going to blow up, and that is what happens. And yeah, this film is one of the best films I've seen in a long time. Alita Battle Angel, that was my film of the year. That film is amazing. But this film, purely because of Joaquin Phoenix's performance as the Joker, which we know is so hard to get right, puts this firmly as my favourite film of 2019, and I actually think it'll be one of the most successful. I feel like DC fans in particular this is what they've needed, this is what they've been craving, a film that they can actually get behind that is actually spectacular. This is what DC fans deserve. Let's put it on. This is what DC fans deserve, because you've had too many films come out showing great superheroes, great villains, great characters, and they haven't done them justice. They haven't done them justice. And it's refreshing to be able to put on the big screen an iconic villain in the DC universe and be able to stand behind it and say, boom, this is what you can do given the right script, the right actor, the right material. This is what we can achieve. We can achieve greatness, in essence. This is what we can do, and hopefully this is a touchstone for future DC films. If you get all these things aligned and right, this is what we can do. And Joker is an example of that. It's perfect. Yeah, and another thing that I really like is that throughout the film, Joker has these almost like hallucinations, but the way it's done, and this is the way I think you should always do it, is that when it's having hallucinations, you don't know that that's not real. You're on the journey with him, and only at a later date does it reveal that that wasn't part of reality, in essence. So there's this scene where he basically lives in a block of flats with his mother, this awful block of flats with his mother who's not well, and I think a couple of blocks down, or a couple of rooms down, basically, there's a woman who has a young daughter as well. And in an off chance, he meets her in the elevator. They have a bit of a conversation, and then for the next maybe not the rest of the film, but the next probably half an hour or so, they build up this relationship. He meets her again, they have more conversations, they go out for dinner, she goes to his comedy shows, and they start to build this relationship. It's good. So then, about halfway through the film, he finds out that his mother isn't truly his mother. He finds out he was abused and his mother didn't really look after him properly. So this is a turning point, and for me, this is what kind of pushes him off the edge to become the Joker. So he's having a bad day, for his standards at least. So he comes back home, and instead of going into his apartment, he goes to hers. So he goes to her apartment, and he sits down in the living room. She's with her little daughter in the bedroom. She doesn't hear him. She comes out, and then she's shocked. And then she's talking to him like she doesn't recognise him. I think you're in the wrong room, sir. Or can you please leave? And as she's saying these things, you're realising that the past maybe 5 scenes that you've seen him previously, where she's interacting with him, she's going to the comedy club with him, she's speaking with him about various things, she's with him when his mother's ill in hospital. All these things are just an illusion. They're not real. And then it shows you these scenes. It shows you, boom, the scene where she's there, then she disappears, and she's not really there. So you begin to realise that it was all made up. It was all figurative. And that's what I really like. It reminds me of... there's a film I watched a long time ago called Descent, where they descend into these caves, and there's kind of like these monsters in the caves that are dark, and it's an okay film. But what makes it kind of special, or what at least reminds me of this film, is they're all getting killed off, and the last woman, she gets out, and the partner's like, yes, she's got out. She's actually escaped the cave. She gets in the car, she's driving away in a panic, and then one of the monsters pops up from behind her, and you think, ooh, boom, and then she just wakes up, and she wakes up still back in the cave, and that was just her dreaming, basically. But until that's revealed, you're on the same journey as her. You're following her journey, and her realisation that it wasn't real is also your realisation. And it's the same with the Joker. In the moments up to that point where you realise that this woman who's a few apartments down isn't in some form of relationship with him, she doesn't support him, she doesn't even really know him, at the point that you realise that, I think maybe also he realises that, and the reality kicks in that he has no one, he has nothing, he has no one, and that tips him over the edge. So that's another thing I really like. I like how he has these illusions, he has these imaginations, let's say, and it doesn't give you enough on screen at the time to tell you that that isn't real until later on, and that has a big impact. So I really did enjoy that as well. So for me, this is, my film of the year. If you've not seen it, Hopefully I've not spoiled it for you. Go and watch it. You will not be disappointed. And that's it for me, guys. Hopefully you liked my content. Hopefully you liked my ramblings on as well. And if you did, please like and subscribe for more content. And I will see you guys in the next one.